Mom, either hold our place or go back to the hotel. Don't make it harder, they said without lifting their eyes from the phone. Maeve's fingers loosened. The tote slid from her shoulder, landing soft against the cobbles. For a moment she stood still, heat buzzing in her ears. Then they simply walked away. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. My name is Maeve Carter. I am 68 years old. This is the story of how I found my way back to myself. They spoke without looking at me. Hold our spot or head back to the hotel. Your choice. My son-in-law's voice floated over the crowd. My daughter kept her eyes on her phone. My grandson filmed the water with his phone. I stood there holding everyone's things. The tote bag cut into my shoulder. Sun hats. Water bottles. The weight of their convenience. My knees ached against the cobblestones. The stones were uneven. Old. Like me, I had flown across an ocean for this trip. Family time, they called it. But I became the coat rack. The wallet. The quiet shadow who kept their day moving. An hour ago I paid for the boat tour. Brent had left his card upstairs, he said. Yesterday I watched them eat gelato. They didn't offer me a spoon. The line crept forward. The loudspeaker muttered Italian words I couldn't understand. I shifted the bag. The nylon bit deeper. A woman my age stood ahead with her husband. She held his hand. She laughed at something small. Brent called over his shoulder. Either keep our place or meet us on the other side. He was already half turned away. I stared at their backs. My daughter's neat ponytail. The boy's bright sneakers. The man who always stood in the center. They faced the water. Not me. The breeze lifted the lake into scattered light. Something inside me stopped stretching. I had been stretching for years. Bending. Making myself smaller so they could be bigger. Making myself useful so they would keep me. But useful isn't the same as wanted. I stepped out of the line. No drama. No words. I set their tote against a stone pillar. I tucked my passport inside my shirt. The paper crinkled against my chest like a secret. I walked toward a narrow lane that angled uphill. Bougainvillea leaned over old stone walls. Purple flowers offering shade to no one in particular. I didn't look back. My feet found the rhythm of the climb. Each step felt less like work, more like choice. Yes to quiet, yes to breath, yes to the sound of my own footsteps on ancient stones. A cat slept on a scooter seat. Its fur was orange in the afternoon sun. Laundry hung above the street like flags of small surrenders. White sheets, blue towels, someone's ordinary life drying in the Italian air. The ferry horn sounded behind me, long and low, final. They would realize I was gone when the boat came. They would look around. They would call my name into the crowd. But I wouldn't be there to answer. For the first time in years, I wouldn't be there. The lane curved upward. The stones under my feet were smooth from centuries of footsteps. Other people who had walked away from things. Other people who had chosen a different direction. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Once. Twice. I didn't reach for it. The noise from the lake grew thinner. Bird sounds took its place. Real sounds. Not the constant chatter of people who had forgotten how to see me. I kept climbing. My breath came easier with each step. My shoulders relaxed. The weight I'd been carrying wasn't just in the tote bag. It had been in my spine. In my chest. In the space between my thoughts. Now it was gone. A wooden sign appeared on my left. Hand-painted in faded blue letters. Khmer. Rooms. An arrow pointed toward a house the color of warm milk. Green shutters. A bell pull worn smooth by other hands. I tugged the rope. The bell rang once, clear and simple. The door opened. A woman with silver hair appeared. Her hands were white with flour. She looked at me with kind eyes that asked no questions. "Buongiorno," she said softly. "Room?" I asked. The word came out small but certain. "Per una notte?" She smiled. Si, una notte." She wiped her hands on her apron. "Mi chiamo Elisabetta." "Maeve," I said. My name sounded different in my own mouth. Like something I owned again. She beckoned me inside. The house smelled of bread and lemons. Real smells from a real kitchen where real people made real choices about their own lives. I followed her up narrow stairs. My phone buzzed again in my pocket. I let it buzz. For 68 years I had answered every call. Every demand. Every request that began with my name and ended with someone else's need. Not today. Today I climbed the stairs to a room I had chosen. In a house I had found. In a country where nobody knew what I was supposed to do next. The woman opened a door. Sunlight spilled across faded cotton and clean sheets. A window overlooked red roofs and olive trees. A small desk held a pencil stub and folded paper. This room knew nothing about me. It had no expectations. It offered only what it was. 4 walls, a bed, a window, space for one person to exist without explanation. I set down my small bag. It made no sound on the wooden floor. For the first time in years, I was exactly where I belonged. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Evening came soft against the tiles. Elisabetta brought me soup in a chipped bowl. Bread with oil that smelled like grass. She didn't ask questions beyond comfort. "Pain? Acqua? Bene?" I answered with my smile and careful words. The soup was warm. Real warmth that started in my chest and spread outward. Not the borrowed warmth of standing near other people's lives. This was mine. Back in my room I found paper and pencil. Not for grievances. For truths. I am 68 and still strong. I wrote each word slowly. Deliberately. Strength isn't carrying what isn't mine. I know how to buy my own ticket. The pencil felt good between my fingers. Like holding something solid. Something that couldn't be taken away or forgotten in someone else's hurry. I added one more line. Smaller script. More secret. I want sunlight and a kettle and a door that locks from the inside. My phone blinked on the nightstand. Insistent as a firefly. Messages stacked like accusations. "Where are you? This isn't safe. We're worried." No apologies. Only narrative maintenance. Only the story they needed me to play. I powered it off. The room exhaled. I dreamed of water without edges. Water that didn't end at someone else's shore. I woke before dawn to gray light creeping through shutters. Made tea from a sachet left on the tray. I watched the sky move from slate to pearl. Colors I had forgotten while watching other people's schedules. Other people's needs. I remembered the school office where I worked for 35 years. The copy machine's steady hum. The rhythm of bells marking time. The small kingdom of lost mittens and forgotten lunches. People thanked me then. Not always, but often. They looked at me when they spoke. They saw me as a person who solved problems. Not a problem to be solved. When did looking turn into looking past? When did helping turn into being used? The questions didn't hurt anymore. They opened like windows letting in fresh air. After breakfast I asked Elisabetta about the train station. She drew a map on a bakery receipt. Arrows like stitches connecting one place to another. Treno per Milano. Facile. Easy. I traced the route with my finger. The way I used to trace highways on paper maps with George long ago, before GPS told us where to go. When we chose our own direction. The remembering didn't hurt. It opened something inside my chest. A space that had been locked for years. George would have understood this moment. This choice. He never made me smaller to make himself bigger. He saw me as whole. Complete. Enough. I folded the receipt and put it in my pocket. Next to my passport. Next to the key to this room that belonged to no one but me. Elisabetta handed me a small bag. Pain, she said softly. For the journey. Bread wrapped in white paper. Still warm from her hands. I wanted to stay. To let this kindness wrap around me like a blanket. But staying here would be another kind of hiding. Another way to avoid the life waiting for me. The life I needed to build with my own hands. I walked to the train station through morning light. My feet knew the stones now. The rhythm of small steps toward something larger. At the ticket window I bought passage with cash from the emergency pocket. The pocket I sewed into every purse years ago. Insurance George called it. Freedom I called it now. I chose a destination by sound. By the way the syllables felt in my mouth. Not because someone else needed me there. Not because it fit their schedule. Because I wanted to see what waited at the end of that particular line. The regional train rattled south through countryside that belonged to itself. Through windows I saw laundry hanging in morning sun. Satellite dishes like small moons attached to real lives. Gardens tended by hands that chose what to grow. I got off where the name sounded kind. Voghera. A sleepy place with a square and a newsstand. A tobacconist and a bench that didn't mind who sat. The bench was warm from sun. Smooth from other people who had rested here. Who had made their own choices about where to go next. I sent no message. I owed no explanation. A boy chased pigeons across the square. The birds scattered and regrouped. The boy laughed and tried again. His joy was complete. Uncomplicated. His own. I remembered Noah at that age. Before phones. Before the weight of trying to be impressive. When laughter came easy and often. That boy still lived inside my grandson somewhere. Hidden under the performance of being 16. Under the pressure of being always watched. Maybe he would find his way back to simple joy. Maybe not. Either way it wasn't my job to carry that weight for him. In a corner cafe I found a public computer. Ancient and slow but reliable. Like me, I moved pieces of my life with steady fingers. Booked a flight home for tomorrow. Aisle seat because my knee preferred it. My choice. My comfort. I checked the bank account. Years ago Lily convinced me to add her name. Just for emergencies, she said. Just in case. I revoked her access with 3 clicks and a phone call. The representative was efficient. Professional. Would you like a new card number as well? Yes, I said. Send it to my home address. Only me. My reflection looked back from the dark screen. Gray hair. Tired eyes. But something new in the set of my jaw. Something that hadn't been there before. Determination maybe. Or just the simple recognition that I was still here. Still capable of choosing. Outside the pigeons had won. The boy sat on the fountain edge eating something sweet. His legs swung free. His face tilted toward sun. I sat very still and felt something inside settle. Like flour in a jar after you stop shaking it. Like water finding its level. I bought a postcard with a watercolor bridge. Wrote on the back without an address. I will not wait for permission to take up space. I slipped it into my journal. A folded promise to the person I was becoming. The train back to Milano left at 4. I had time. Time that belonged to me. Time measured by my own heartbeat instead of someone else's impatience. I ordered coffee at a cafe with tables in the sun. Real coffee. Strong and bitter and mine. No one asked me to share. No one needed me to pay for theirs. The cup warmed my hands. The bitter taste cleared my head. For the first time in years I sat without purpose beyond sitting. Without agenda beyond breathing. It felt revolutionary. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The flight home took 8 hours. I didn't sleep. I watched clouds through the small window. White mountains with no names. No borders. Just sky and space and the steady hum of engines. The woman beside me read a romance novel. The cover showed a man without a shirt. She turned pages with painted nails. Cherry red. Confident. I used to paint my nails. Before marriage. Before children. Before I learned that pretty hands were selfish when there was work to do. Maybe I would paint them again. At the airport I didn't call anyone. Didn't wait for pickup. I took a shuttle to a car rental desk. Signed papers with my own name. My own credit card. My own destination. The clerk was young. Efficient. She handed me keys without curiosity. Without assumptions about where an old woman might go at 10 o'clock at night. I drove past my exit. Past the townhouse where Lily would be checking the driveway. Past the life that expected me to return unchanged. I found a roadside inn 2 towns away. The kind with thin walls and thick quilts. A night clerk who read paperback mysteries between guests. The neon sign buzzed like a tired insect. It was perfect. I paid cash for the room. The clerk barely looked up from his book. A detective story. Something about murder in a small town. He stamped my receipt and slid a key across scarred formica. The room smelled like industrial carpet and other people's decisions. I didn't mind. It smelled like freedom. I sat on the bed and felt my spine settle. No one knew where I was. No one expected breakfast or clean towels or solutions to problems they created themselves. The silence was complete. Not the angry silence that comes after arguments. The clean silence that comes from being alone with your own thoughts. I thought about George. How he used to say I was the strongest person he knew. Not because I carried everyone else's weight. Because I knew my own mind. Because I made decisions and stood by them. When did I stop believing him? When did I trade strength for safety? The questions followed me into sleep. I dreamed of papers scattered in wind. Documents with my name signing away pieces of myself. I woke determined to gather them back. In the morning I called Mr. Hahn. The lawyer George and I used for our wills. His voice was the same. Patient. Careful. Professional. I want to make changes, I told him. To my will. My power of attorney. Everything. He asked if I was under duress. If anyone was pressuring me. I appreciated the question. It showed he understood what family could do. No pressure, I said. Just clarity. We scheduled an appointment for that afternoon. I would sign new papers. Papers that gave my life back to me. I drove to the county office building. Limestone steps worn smooth by other people's business. Other people's decisions about their own lives. Inside smelled like floor wax and bureaucracy. Fluorescent lights that flattened everything. Made everyone look tired. But I didn't feel tired. I felt awake. Mr. Hahn's office was on the 3rd floor. Wood paneling. Leather chairs. The weight of important decisions made carefully. He explained each change. each revision to documents that had given other people control over my choices. My money, my future. Do you understand what you're signing? He asked. I understand that I'm taking my life back, I said. He smiled. The first real smile I'd seen from a professional in years. Not the careful smile that manages expectations. The genuine smile that recognizes truth. We signed papers, witnessed signatures, made copies. Each page returned something that had been taken. Something I had given away without understanding the cost. When we finished, Mr. Han walked me to the elevator. He shook my hand like he meant it. Like he was congratulating me on something worth celebrating. At the townhouse, everything looked smaller. The shared kitchen. The decorating choices Lily made without asking. The photographs arranged to tell someone else's story about my life. I packed methodically. Not everything, just what mattered. The teacher gift mugs that made me smile. The Pyrex with scratches like road maps. The quilt George's mother made with her arthritic fingers. The rest I left for Lily. With a note that said what needed saying. These things are yours now. What people give you isn't always yours to keep. I boxed my books. The ones I chose. Not the ones people thought I should read. The mystery novels and poetry collections. The cookbook with margin notes in my own handwriting. I folded clothes into suitcases. Simple clothes. Comfortable clothes. Clothes that didn't apologize for existing or try to make me look younger than I was. By evening the boxes stood ready. Labels written in my careful script. Some for storage. Some for donation. Some for the apartment I hadn't found yet but knew was waiting. I sat in George's chair. The recliner we bought for his back problems. Where he read evening papers and dozed during baseball games. The chair still held his shape. Still smelled faintly of his aftershave. Old Spice and contentment. He would be proud of me, I thought. Not for leaving. For choosing. For remembering that I was a person worth choosing well. The phone rang. Lily's number on the display. I let it ring until it stopped. Then I turned off the ringer. Tomorrow I would find an apartment. Something small. Something mine. Somewhere I could hear my coffee brewing and my own thoughts thinking. Tonight I would sleep in this house one last time. In the bed I shared with the man who loved me whole. Who never asked me to be smaller. Who never made me useful instead of beloved. I pulled George's quilt up to my chin. The weight of it felt like an embrace. Like permission. Like the promise that some love lasts beyond leaving. Outside, rain started against the windows. Gentle at first. Then steady. The sound of the world washing itself clean. I closed my eyes and listened. Tomorrow would bring new sounds. New rhythms. New choices that belonged only to me. But tonight I rested in the certainty of decision made. Papers signed. Life reclaimed. The rain drummed its approval against glass. Against roof tiles. Against the hard shell of my old life cracking open to reveal what had been growing inside all along. Myself. Uncarried. Unburdened. Unbound. Ready. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The apartment had one room. One bed. One table. One chair. Room enough for one life lived honestly. High windows caught morning light and held it. A slice of sky between brick buildings. Blue some days. Gray others. Always mine to watch. The landlord was a woman with practical shoes and kind eyes. She showed me the kitchen. Small but complete. The bathroom. Clean and private. The closet. Adequate for someone who traveled light. It's quiet in the mornings, she said. Good, I told her. I like to hear my coffee. She smiled at that. Not the polite smile people use on old women. The real smile that recognizes a kindred spirit. I signed the lease with my own pen. My own name. My own future spelled out in blue ink on white paper. The keys felt like coins I had finally earned. I moved in on a Tuesday. No fanfare. No help. Just boxes and determination and the steady progress of one foot in front of another. I arranged furniture by instinct. By the way light fell across the floor. By the way my body moved through space that belonged entirely to me. The bed faced the window. The chair sat near enough to read by natural light. The table held my coffee cup and whatever book I was reading. Simple. Functional. Mine. On Wednesday I found the bakery. Corner location. Warm smells leaking through glass doors. The owner was young. Black hair pulled back. Flour dusting her dark hands. She slid a blueberry muffin into a paper bag. "First one's for luck," she said. Her accent carried music. Caribbean maybe. Somewhere warm and honest. I thanked her. Tasha, her name tag read. I filed it away with other important information. Good coffee at 8. Fresh muffins by 9. Kindness available daily. Thursday I discovered the library. Old building. Slow elevator. The kind of hush that comes from years of quiet thinking. The librarian was young enough to be my granddaughter. She wore glasses that suited her face. A name tag that said Jenny. She called me Ms. Maeve without being asked. The fiction section held old friends. New discoveries. Stories that didn't require me to be useful. Just present. Just willing to turn pages and let other lives unfold. I checked out 3 books. Mystery. Biography. Poetry. The limit was 10. I had room to grow. Friday brought rain. I sat at my window and watched water run down glass. Listened to the steady drumming on the roof. Weather that asked nothing, expected nothing, just fell where it needed to fall. I made tea in my own pot. Drank it from my favorite cup. The one with tiny roses George bought at a yard sale. 20 years ago, lifetime ago. The tea tasted like memory. Like mornings when we sat together in comfortable silence. When being married meant having someone who understood your rhythms. Who didn't need you to explain why you liked your coffee black. Your eggs over easy. Your love steady and undemanding. Saturday I found the park. 3 blocks north. Past the drugstore. Past the bus stop where teenagers gathered after school. A bench sat empty near the pond. Weathered wood. Iron arms that had supported other watchers. Other people who needed somewhere to sit and think. I sat. Watched ducks paddle in lazy circles. Listened to children on the playground. Their voices bright as scattered coins. Their joy uncomplicated by adult worries. A man tended the flower beds nearby. White hair. Clean shirt. Careful movements of someone who understood growing things. He worked without hurry. Staked tomato plants. Strung twine between wooden posts. Made space for things to climb toward sunlight. Sunday morning he was there again. This time with coffee in a thermos. Steam rising in cool air. We nodded. Strangers sharing space without intrusion. Without expectation. He talked about weather the way lonely people do. Part forecast. Part memory. Part hope for something better coming. His wife had loved zinnias, he said. Bright colors. Easy to grow. Cheerful even when everything else failed. I told him George had loved early morning. Light on water. Coffee while the world stayed quiet. We shared the silence that comes after mentioning the dead. Not sad silence. Respectful silence. The acknowledgement of love that outlasts leaving. Would you like some coffee? He asked. He held the thermos like an offering. Like someone who understood that small kindnesses matter most. I would, I said. He poured careful cups. The coffee was good. Strong enough to taste. Warm enough to matter. He didn't ask questions. Didn't assume. Just shared what he had brought. Arthur, he said when we finished. His name fit him. Solid. Reliable. The kind of man who tended gardens and meant what he said. Maeve, I told him. We sat in comfortable quiet. Watched his tomatoes grow imperceptibly toward harvest. Watched the world wake up around us. When I left, he was still working. Still making space for things to flourish. At home I washed his cup. Dried it carefully. Set it on the shelf next to my rose cup and the Italian postcard I had finally framed. My phone sat silent on the counter. Face down. Forgotten. The way phones should be when life happens in real time. I made lunch for one. Ate it slowly. Tasted each bite without hurrying toward someone else's schedule. The afternoon stretched ahead. Mine to fill or leave empty. Mine to spend on books or naps or staring out windows at weather I didn't have to drive through. I chose the window. Chose watching. Chose the luxury of time that belonged to no one but me. Outside, people walked dogs. Carried groceries. Lived their Sunday lives without needing my help or permission or presence. It was exactly what I had always wanted without knowing how to want it. Evening came soft as a held breath. I lit one candle. Made simple dinner. Set the table for one with good dishes. With cloth napkin. With the small ceremony that says this meal matters. This person matters. This moment deserves attention. I ate slowly. Chewed thoughtfully. Tasted the salt. The sweetness. The simple pleasure of food chosen and prepared and consumed at my own pace. After dinner I sat in my chair. Read poetry until my eyes grew heavy. Closed the book with a finger marking my place for tomorrow. Outside my window, the city settled into night. Lights in other windows. Other lives continuing their own stories. I turned off my lamp. Pulled back the covers. Lay down in bed that asked nothing. Expected nothing. Just held me while I slept. For the first time in decades, I fell asleep to the sound of my own breathing. My own heartbeat. My own life, finally, uninterrupted by anyone else's needs. It was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. 3 weeks passed like quiet prayers. Morning coffee. Afternoon books. Evening light across my table. The rhythm of a life measured by my own heartbeat. Then Lily came. I heard her footsteps in the hallway. Hesitant. Searching for the right door. The right words. The right version of herself to present. She knocked soft as rain. Waited. Knocked again. I opened the door. She stood there clutching coffee in a paper cup. Like a ticket to someplace she wasn't sure she belonged. I like your place, she said. Halfway inside. Halfway out. It likes me back, I answered. The room seemed to agree. Plants green in window light. Kettle quiet on the stove. Space that made no demands. We sat at my little table. The one that seated two if two people chose smallness over comfort. We listened to the building settle around us. To upstairs neighbors living their own stories. To our own careful breathing. I was scared, Lily said finally. At the ferry. After. I was scared for years, I said. Not unkindly. Scared that if I stopped helping I'd stop being invited. Her throat worked like swallowing was difficult. I didn't mean. Don't finish that, I said gently. Make it about what happened, not what you meant. She nodded. Small movements like testing whether her neck still worked. I made you small, she said. You made me useful, I corrected. Useful isn't the same as loved. The words sat between us. Not accusation, just fact. Like saying water is wet. Sky is blue. Truth is truth whether we speak it or not. I am sorry, she said. The words simple, unadorned, real as morning light through clean windows. I believed her. I also believed in walls that don't move just because someone knocks. In boundaries that hold their shape even when pressure comes. There will be boundaries now, I told her. I will not hold your place in line. I will eat when I'm hungry. Sit when I'm tired. If we are together, it will be as two people, not as gravity and satellite. She ventured something that might become a smile. Like the girl who once picked dandelions and called them presents. Who once thought her mother hung the moon and stars. If you ever want to see us, she said at the door. You don't carry anything. That's the only way, I said. The hallway light flickered on. Motion sensor responding to her leaving. Then politely off. Like even the building understood the need for privacy. I made tea after she left. Sat in my chair by the window. Watched people pass on the sidewalk below. Each person carrying their own weight. Their own choices. Their own carefully constructed lives. A mother pushed a stroller. A businessman checked his phone. A teenager walked a dog that stopped to sniff every interesting smell. Normal people, living normal lives. Not responsible for anyone else's happiness. Not required to disappear so others could shine. The tea grew cool in my cup. I drank it anyway. Room temperature honesty. Bitter truth made palatable by choosing it myself. Evening came like a friend who knew not to knock. Just settled into the chair across from mine. Kept me company while I thought. I thought about Lily at 5. All scraped knees and fierce questions. Why is the sky blue, Mama? Why do flowers grow up and not down? Why can't I see tomorrow from here? I thought about Lily at 15. All angles and arguments. Pushing against everything. Including me. Especially me. Testing whether love could survive disagreement. I thought about Lily at 25. New husband. New certainty about how life should work. New impatience with people who moved too slowly. Thought too much. Asked too many questions. I thought about Lily at 42. 3 weeks ago. Still certain. Still impatient. Still surprised that other people had their own ideas about existing. Maybe she would learn. Maybe not. Either way, it wasn't my job to teach her. My job was to live my own life with integrity. With boundaries. With kindness that didn't require self-erasure. The phone rang. Not Lily. Arthur. Would I like to walk tomorrow? He asked. Weather permitting. His voice steady. Respectful. The kind of invitation that accepted no as easily as yes. Weather permitting, I said. Yes. After I hung up, I realized something had shifted. Some internal compass had recalibrated. North was no longer what other people needed. North was what served my own true direction. I made dinner for one. Set the table properly. Cloth napkin. Good dishes. The small ceremony that says this person matters. This meal deserves attention. I ate slowly. Chewed thoughtfully. Tasted herbs I had chosen. Salt I had added. Satisfaction I had earned by choosing my own company over anyone else's demands. After dinner, I sat at the window with a book. Poetry about ordinary things made sacred by attention. Bread rising. Light falling. Hearts learning to beat for themselves instead of everyone else. Outside my window, the city continued its evening business. People walking dogs, carrying groceries, living lives that didn't require my participation or approval. It was beautiful, the way independence is beautiful. Clean, uncluttered, honest. I closed my book, marked my place with a postcard. The one I bought in Italy. The bridge, the promise I made to myself. I will not wait for permission to take up space. I had kept that promise. Every morning when I made coffee for one. Every evening when I chose what to read. Every moment when I listened to my own thoughts without editing them for someone else's comfort. The apartment settled around me like arms that didn't need to hold tight. Like love that didn't demand proof. Like space that belonged to me because I belonged to myself. I turned off the lights. One by one. Lamp by the chair. Overhead in the kitchen. The small light over the stove that I left burning. A lighthouse for no one but me. In bed I listened to the building breathe. To lives continuing behind other walls. To my own heart keeping steady time. Tomorrow Arthur would come. We would walk without hurrying. Talk about weather and gardens. Share the comfortable silence of people who had learned that loneliness and solitude were different countries entirely. Tomorrow I would buy groceries for one. Read books chosen by one. Make decisions that served a life I had built with my own hands. Tomorrow I would wake up in a space that knew my name. That waited for my footsteps. That held my choices like water holds light. I closed my eyes and smiled in the darkness. Not because anything had been solved. Because nothing needed solving. I was exactly where I belonged. Exactly who I was meant to be. Whole. Complete. Enough. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Summer thinned into autumn like butter scraped across toast. Clean edges. No waste. The kind of season that knew its purpose. I learned the names of people who mattered. Tasha at the bakery. Jenny at the library. Mrs. Chen who swept her storefront every morning at 7 sharp. I learned how much basil one person needs. Less than you think. How silence tastes with tea. Like citrus somehow. Bright. Clean. Surprising. Arthur and I walked Sundays. Sometimes the garden. Sometimes the lake. Depending on weather. Depending on what our bodies wanted from the day. He told me Latin names of plants. Rudbeckia. Echinacea. Words that pleased his mouth. Made him feel connected to something larger than loss. I told him about children from the school office. Little Bobby who lost mittens weekly. Sarah who brought me drawings of purple cats. Names I carried like smooth stones in my pocket. We walked without hurrying. Without destination beyond movement. Without expectation beyond company freely given. Sometimes sadness pressed under my ribs. A bruise that didn't show. A song on someone's radio. A mother smoothing her child's collar at the bus stop. The ache didn't pull me backward. It pointed to distance traveled. Like looking back at shore from the middle of the lake. Recognition without regret. One Tuesday afternoon I rode the ferry. Our small local ferry. Not the tourist boat where everything started. Just the working boat that carried commuters across water. At the rail a young woman balanced everything. Stroller. Diaper bag. Phone sliding from her shoulder. The weight of being responsible for more than herself. I caught the bag's strap with steady fingers. Held it until she could breathe. Until she could find her footing on deck that rocked with lake motion. "Thank you," she said. Like someone who had been seen. Really seen. Not judged for struggling. Just helped. "You're welcome," I said. meaning it. Then I let go. Letting go. The skill I was finally learning. How to help without carrying. How to care without disappearing. How to love without losing myself. On the other shore I bought a postcard. The ferry itself crossing blue water. Wrote on the back with a pen that worked. To no one and to everyone. I did not go back. I went through. At home I tucked it beside the first postcard. The Italian bridge. The promise I made and kept. My studio walls holding evidence of choices made. Distance traveled. Life reclaimed. Evening light slanted through windows I had chosen. Across furniture I had arranged. Into space that knew my rhythms and respected them. I boiled water for tea. The kettle sang its small song. Steam rose like prayers I didn't need to voice. The water was ready when I said it was ready. I sat by the window with poetry. Ordinary words about extraordinary moments. Bread rising. Light falling. Hearts learning their own true rhythm. A knock at my door. Soft. Respectful. The kind of knock that waited for permission. I opened it to find Arthur. Clean shirt. Careful hair. Eyes that asked nothing. Offered everything. Would I like to walk to the lake? He asked. No pressure. Just possibility. Just two people who had learned to trust small kindnesses. Yes, I said. Let me get my jacket. We walked through streets I knew by heart now. Past the bakery where Tasha waved through steamed windows. Past the library where Jenny was probably helping someone find exactly the right book. Past lives continuing their own stories. Their own choices. Their own careful construction of days that mattered. At the lake we sat on a bench worn smooth by other watchers. Other people who needed to see water move. To remember that some things continue without effort. Without permission. Without explanation. Arthur poured coffee from his thermos. The same thermos. The same generous gesture. But today it felt different. More ritual than politeness. More friendship than habit. The coffee was perfect. Not too hot. Not too sweet. Just coffee shared between people who understood that some gifts require nothing but acceptance. We watched sailboats tack across water that caught late light like scattered coins. Watched families pack picnic baskets. Watched teenagers dive from the pier with the fearlessness of people who believed in tomorrow. This is nice, Arthur said. Simple words. True words. Words that meant exactly what they said without hidden expectations. Yes, I said. It is. We sat in comfortable quiet. Two people who had learned the difference between being alone and being lonely. Between solitude and isolation. Between independence and abandonment. The sun dropped toward the horizon. Sky turned rose. Then orange. Then purple deep as bruises that finally healed. Time to head back, Arthur said. Not because he was tired. Because he understood that even good things needed endings. That perfect moments were perfect partly because they didn't last forever. We walked home through streets lit by porch lights. By windows where other people lived their evening lives. Made their dinners. Read their books. Chose their own versions of happiness. At my door Arthur paused. Not lingering. Just marking the moment. The walk shared. The coffee finished. The easy companionship that asked nothing beyond presence. Thank you, he said. For walking. For the company. For being exactly who you are without apology. Thank you, I said. For the same reasons. He smiled. Walked to his own door 3 buildings down. Turned once to wave. Not goodbye. Just acknowledgement. Just the recognition that some connections don't require constant tending. Inside I made dinner for one. Set the table properly. Lit a candle because Tuesday deserved ceremony. Because ordinary moments could be sacred if you treated them with attention. I ate slowly. Tasted herbs. Salt. The satisfaction of food chosen and prepared without hurrying toward someone else's schedule. After dinner I sat in my chair. Read until my eyes grew heavy. Marked my place with a fairy postcard. Progress measured in pages turned at my own pace. Outside my window the city settled into night. Lights in other apartments. Other lives continuing their own stories without requiring my participation. My approval. My sacrifice. The phone rang. Lily's number on the display. I answered because I chose to. Not because I had to. "Hi Mom," she said. "We're at the park. No lines. Just a blanket. Want to join?" I looked at my slice of sky. Still light enough for one more choice. One more small yes to connection offered freely instead of demanded. "Yes," I said. "I'll bring muffins." I locked my door. The key turned easily in my hand. Like everything else in my life now. Easy because it was chosen. Honest because it was mine. Outside the evening gleamed like a coin finally earned. Clean. Valuable. Completely my own. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The muffins still come from Tasha's bakery. Still warm at 9. Still offered with the same generous smile that says welcome without asking questions. Jenny at the library saves new mysteries for me. Thursday mornings. Regular as clockwork. We discuss plots over coffee she brews in the staff room. Real coffee. Strong enough to matter. Mrs. Chen still sweeps at 7 sharp. Precise strokes across concrete that's seen 1,000 mornings. 1,000 small acts of care. She nods when I pass. Acknowledgement between people who understand ritual. Arthur and I walk twice a week now. Sundays and Wednesdays. Weather permitting. Bodies permitting. Age teaching us both to negotiate with time. His tomatoes grew tall last summer. Heavy with fruit that tasted like sunshine concentrated. Like patience rewarded. He shared them freely. No obligation attached. I made sauce that lasted through winter. Jarred in clean glass. Labeled in my own handwriting. Proof that I could provide for myself. Preserve what mattered. Plan for seasons ahead. Spring came early this year. Daffodils pushing through soil still cold from winter's grip. Hope made visible. Yellow promises kept by bulbs planted in faith. I planted my own garden. Small plot behind the building. Landlord said yes when I asked. Said the courtyard needed tending. Needed someone who understood growing things. Lettuce. Herbs. Flowers for cutting. Nothing ambitious. Just green proof that I could nurture without being consumed. Could tend without disappearing. My hands learned soil again. The weight of earth. The smell of things beginning. The patience required to let nature move at its own pace. Noah visited in March. My grandson. Taller now. Voice changed. Phone forgotten in my kitchen while we walked to the lake. He asked real questions. Not the kind adults teach children to ask. Real curiosity about my choices. My life. The apartment he'd never seen before. "Why did you leave?" he asked. Simple words. Complex answer. "Because I forgot I was a person," I said. "Not just useful. A person." He nodded like someone who understood identity as work in progress. Like someone learning the difference between performing and existing. We skipped stones across water that reflected clouds. Counted ripples that spread wider than we could follow. Talked about college plans. Dreams that belonged to him alone. When he left he hugged me properly. Not the quick embrace of obligation. The real hug that says I see you. I choose this connection. I will remember. Lily comes monthly now. Sometimes with Noah. Sometimes alone. Always with coffee in paper cups. Always asking permission instead of assuming welcome. We sit at my small table. Share space without crowding. Talk about books. Weather. Her work at the marketing firm. Safe topics that build trust slowly. She doesn't apologize anymore. Doesn't relitigate the past. Just shows up consistently. Proves change through action instead of words. Last month she brought pictures. Vacation photos from their trip to Colorado. Mountains. Hiking trails. Family moments that didn't require my presence to exist. Look, she said, pointing to Noah on a summit. He made it to the top by himself. I saw the pride in her voice. The recognition that some accomplishments can't be carried. Can only be earned. Can only belong to the person who did the work. Good for him, I said. Meaning it. Brent comes sometimes. Quieter now. Less certain about taking up space. He asks about my garden. My books. Actually listens to answers. People can change. Or maybe people reveal who they always were beneath the performance. Either way, I measure relationships by what they bring now. Not what they took before. The apartment still fits perfectly. One chair. One bed. One table. Room for a life lived honestly without apology or explanation. I've added small things. A reading lamp that casts warm light. A rug that softens hard floors. Plants that clean air and ask only for water and window light. The postcards are framed now. The Italian bridge. The local ferry. Evidence of distances traveled. Choices made. Promises kept to myself. I sleep 8 hours every night. Wake without alarms. Let my body choose its own rhythms instead of someone else's schedule. I eat when hungry. Rest when tired. Read what interests me. Watch weather change outside windows that frame sky I chose to see. The phone stays silent most days. Ringers off. Vibration turned down. Emergency contacts programmed for real emergencies. Not manufactured urgency. Not someone else's poor planning. When it does ring, I answer by choice. Not reflex. Not obligation. Choice informed by energy levels. Mood. The simple question of whether I want company or prefer solitude. Both are acceptable answers now. Yesterday Arthur brought soup. Homemade vegetable. Still warm in a covered pot. He'd made too much, he said. Wondered if I might help him finish it. We ate together at my small table. Shared bread I'd bought from Tasha. Talked about his late wife's recipes. My memories of cooking for one instead of many. The soup was perfect. Seasoned with care. Offered without strings. Accepted without guilt. After he left, I washed our bowls. Dried them carefully. Set them back in cupboards that hold exactly what I need. Nothing more. Nothing less. I made tea in my good pot. Sat by the window with poetry. Watched evening settle over a city that continues its business without needing my participation. Children walked home from school. Workers caught buses. Dogs got their evening walks. Life proceeding at its own pace. In its own time. According to its own priorities. I am part of that life now. Not separate. Not invisible. Not indispensable. Just part of the ordinary miracle of people choosing how to spend their days. Tonight I will cook dinner for one. Set the table properly. Light a candle because Tuesday earned ceremony. Because ordinary moments become sacred when treated with attention. I will read until my eyes grow heavy. Sleep in a bed that holds only me. Wake tomorrow to coffee brewed exactly as I like it. I will tend my garden. Buy groceries for one. Walk at my own pace toward destinations I choose. I will answer my door when I want company. Leave it locked when I prefer solitude. Trust my own judgment about what each day requires. The girl who picked dandelions and called them presents is gone. The woman who disappeared into usefulness is gone. The shadow who held other people's places is gone. What remains is simpler, truer, harder to erase. A woman who knows her own name, her own needs, her own worth measured by something deeper than what she can carry for others. I am 69 years old. I am exactly where I belong. I am exactly who I was meant to be. Whole, complete, enough, always enough.